Hi, this is Jane Celia Hatch. Happy holidays, everyone. I haven't been on for a while. I've been busy. I'm finishing a book. I started a Substack, which I'm kind of excited about. It's a platform where you eventually get paid for your writing. I stopped Facebook because I realized I was writing so much information and I was shadow banned and I was censored. And I'm like, why am I doing all this writing? Nobody's seeing it. If they are seeing it, they're not liking it. I'm not getting paid for it. It's like, what am I doing on Facebook? So I started Substack and it's free now and it will always have portions of my writing for free, but eventually it will be there'll be paid subscriptions. Like I said, there'll always be some of it that will be free, but ultimately it's a way for writers to actually start making money, because even if you write and sell a book, you're not getting very much money unless you're like J.K. Rowling or Stephen King or until you make it big. So I started Substack. Um, I've also been doing a lot of research on Princess Diana for that book. It just keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper. And I've just come across a woman who has some very, very unusual intelligence on Diana and knows things that nobody else knows, and it's bringing me deeper. If that was even possible, I didn't think that was possible. So that's exciting. We've had a ton of snow here. I don't know if you could see it out there. But it's all white because I'm in Santa Fe in the mountains. We have like not 2 feet, but close. And so I've been shoveling a lot. And just a whole bunch of stuff. Is still dealing with being a targeted individual, which involves remote neural monitoring. It involves synthetic dreams. It involves directed energy weapons. It involves cyber hacking. It involves gang stalking. So I'm dealing with usually one or more of those in one form or another. Um, And I'm not the type of targeted individual that likes to say what exactly is happening to me. I will say it to the people closest to me, but I just feel like it gives our perpetrators too much information. If they know they're torturing you, and they can see your pain or in your eyes or whatever, that's just spurs them on even more. Um, So I have a very close friend that gave me, you can see that fire. It's electric, but it's really, really cool. It keeps my office warm in the winter. So again, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. I know it's past. There were two types of people primarily that came over on the Mayflower, and one was Puritan and one was Pilgrim. And I think the Puritan were called the Separatists, and then the Pilgrims, one was strangers and one was Separatists, I think. But whatever, the one group were the Pilgrims were sort of like what you might call today the pacifists, the spiritually oriented, the heart center. They were truly seeking religious freedom, and they truly did make a bond with the natives here. How things got extremely complicated was through the Puritans, which I feel were representatives of the royal families of Europe. And of course, what the royal families of Europe wanted was more land, more power, more prestige. Everything was supposed to be named after England, and they didn't really care who they had to kill to claim land. So they started arming certain fractions. Sometimes they were arming the French. Well, the French royalty was arming the French, and the English royalty was arming the English, and then they would arm the colonists, and then they would arm Native Americans. The French got certain tribes and the English got certain tribes. And then, the Pilgrims just got swallowed up in the whole mess because once, a Native American might kill your mother or your sister or your daughter. So then the war starts and it all becomes this big jumbled mess. But the nightmare was coming from the Puritans as representatives of the English royalty. And so I feel bad that the Pilgrims just got, they're all part of that horrible white colonization. Well, there were certain aspects that absolutely were not, and they weren't making friends with the natives. And believe it or not, my research of Princess Diana has brought me to the Mayflower and the early colonial families and when did it, because it's always for you, like, when did everything start? When did this satanic insanity that we're living in now, where did it start? And certainly it was before then, before the 1600s, but I've been going back that far recently. I went back to Cotton Mather, the Puritan. He was a Harvard graduate. He was an orator. He was a theologian. He was a big leader in Boston, and he actually influenced the judges in the witch trials, for which afterwards he said it was a mistake, but he had a great influence on these people because he was like a highly respected man, even though he took this 13-year-old girl into his house to study because she was starting to show signs of what they called witchcraft, which this is sort of the focus of this. Is I say a lot, everything is the opposite. Like during everything right now, that's run by, I believe the world right now is being run by psychopaths, and they're often Satanists, and everything is the opposite. Like during the pandemic, if you were healthy, you were sick. Like a freedom meant lockdown. Freedom meant masking, like you're in a satanic ritual. Everything they said was the opposite of what's really happening. And I think it's a satanic culture, because in actual satanic rituals, and I have been forming relationships and studying and following 4, 5, 6 women now who are survivors since childhood of satanic ritual, and their testimonies are coming out everywhere now. Check out 50 voices of ritual abuse, 50 voices of ritual abuse on YouTube. And what I'm learning is even in rituals, it's the opposite. While they're torturing you, they're saying this is love. While you're I'm not going to go into it. There was one just like really simple one. It was a young girl that was trafficked. Actually, I think it was Chantal Fry. She's German, but she's a survivor and she's giving testimony. She was taken to a blue room, but she said it wasn't blue at all. And they just did this constantly down to, the rape and torture, that they would be telling you the opposite. So we as an entire culture are under this satanic ritual, even though it doesn't seem, it's an illusion that we're not. If you put a mask on your mouth and have told you that's freedom, that's Satanism. Because as we all know now, I mean, a lot of us knew right away that that wasn't the truth. We knew that the mask was sickness and death and uniformity and enslavement, which it was. So we're living under that influence, even though we're not in a satanic ritual per se. Globally, we are now. Everything is the opposite of what our leaders are telling us. Remember that. Almost everything they say is the opposite, or it's hidden. And a lot of that is because of the Mockingbird media, which was an MK Ultra program that came out in the mid 1950s. which was complete control of our media in the West, in America and the United States. So our media is being controlled by MK Ultra, which is a Nazi-based program. So like everything they're saying just about is either the opposite, or it's not true at all, or they've taken a tiny bit and formed a story that, a tiny grain of truth and formed it into a story. So in my research about Diana, like, where did this start? Why, I came out, there's two very distinct white bloodlines. And one is the Illuminati elite, Nazi, there's a lot of names, the 13 ruling families. There is, I'm not going to say there's a Jewish aspect. There is a group that are pretending that they are Jews, but they're actually not. But they are a big part of it, like the Rothschilds and Rockefellers. Satanists don't have an essence, or they don't have a culture, so they constantly have to grab onto other groups. Another big group they grab onto is Catholicism. That religion is almost completely taken over by Satanists. But so, and a lot of that was involved in Princess Diana's life and death, and how she died was actually a ritual sacrifice. So I'm just like, I'm always going, where did this begin? When did it begin? Because in my soul, I know there was a paradise earth. It might have been 50,000, 60,000, but I know it existed since I was born. I was like, what the F? Like, this isn't right. I just knew in my soul. I didn't go to school. They're lying. I just knew, and I was put under MK Ultra mind control for a long time, and I'm still recovering. I'm still finding myself. I'm still finding my voice. I'm still trying to understand what's right and what's wrong, because they're also using remote neuromonitoring. But the closer and closer you get to your soul, the less and less power they have, because they can try to control your mind, but they can't really control your soul. You always have that gut instinct. But anyway, so just recently for my book, and I wrote this on Substack too, Jane Celia Hatch on Substack, I wrote about are you a Puritan or are you a Pilgrim? And I use 4 people as examples: Jeffrey Epstein, Bill Richards, the former New Mexico governor, Princess Diana, and Cotton Mather. And so I explain what I think each one of those persons are, and why it matters. Like, right now, everything has to matter, because humanity is sort of on the precipice. There's 2 ways. There is the positive timeline right now, but the negative one is getting real negative. And I think we're all seeing that in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. At least we've all known, a lot of us knew this evil existed, but now it's really starting to show itself. So it's like, why does it matter? So anyway, I just went back to Salem, Massachusetts. I've always had an interest, a tie, a connection. And I think a lot of women do, because it's sort of where a big part of our oppression came from, even if you didn't live through it. Like, oh, mothers, daughters, grandmothers died together in jail. Like, even mothers trying to protect their daughters were died in jail, either of torture or starvation. At the very end, I think there was just 18, mostly women, that were hung for witchcraft. They were tortured, for like a year, and they were imprisoned. And, if you're a woman, you think about that. And I think we remember in our bones, and we don't want to speak out now. We don't want to. It's hurt the matrilineal line. The witch trials always do, because that's the focus. Because the matrilineal line is the most powerfully healing and empowering and strengthening line we have on the planet, is the mother and child lineage. If they can just, if the Satanists and the Puritans, whatever you want to call them, the Illuminati can destroy that, they can get a hold of the children's minds. So I keep going out on these tangents, but anyway, in the witch trials, I went back and just reread it again. And I was thinking about Cotton Mather and how there's also this other simultaneously to suspicion of witchcraft, the witchcraft outbreak, so-called witchcraft outbreak. There was the Candle Massacre in York Village, Maine. And what that was there was about 100 Puritans who were massacred in January. I think it was early morning, cold, snowy morning, by, I think it was 80, something like that, Abenaki Native Americans. And it was truly a bloodbath. And at the same time, and I didn't know this till recently, there was reports of young girls and women twitching and speaking in tongues and doing all these things as interpreted by people like Cotton Mather, who was a Puritan. So, and I question his integrity. So we know not a lot about the witch trials except for the records of the people who were the leaders of the community, which was mostly Puritan males. So Cotton Mather at that time said, they're all Satanists, the women, the natives, and then he threw in the pilgrims and the papists. He said, Satan needs to be cleansed of the devil. So in some way, he's blaming the women for the Candlemas massacre. Like they're all possessed by the devil, he says, and it has to be cleansed. So all these innocent women, girls, some as young as 5, are suddenly, according to Cotton Mather, who was a leader in the community, they're possessed by the devil. And the natives are possessed by the devil. Well, the Native Americans could be using, curses and demons, whatever, at that point to fight back and try to survive. But my guess is none of those women were possessed by the devil, that they didn't know anything about Satanism, except for the one Black slave, Taduba. She knew voodoo and she knew Satanism and she admitted it, and she was never tried. She was just released. But the other women, 18 of which, and I think one man, were hung. But Tituba, who admitted, yes, I've drank the blood of Satan, or whatever she said, something like that. I am Satan's mistress, which could have been true because she had come from a culture that understood voodoo. And so it's very possible that she did, but she did not get tried as a witch. It was just the women who basically said, no, I don't know anything about it. Or they say yes to save their daughter or save their granddaughter. Okay, so they get killed. What this is a satanic ritual by Satanists like Cotton Mather, who sacrificed all those women to cover his own ass, and probably most of the other men in that community in England that were practicing Satanists. It's like, I don't think any of those women were so-called witches. And I don't even, their witches are healers is probably close to the truth. And Cotton Mather and his cohorts, who said Satan needs to be cleansed of the devil, were just trying to get the focus off of them and trying to find somebody to blame. Maybe he was getting pressure from the royal family. What happened to this, at the Candlemas massacre? Why, because the Puritans, most of them were in alliance with the royals, whereas the Pilgrims were actually trying to get away from all that. They were trying to get away from the Church of England in a very significant way, whereas the Puritans, it was just some sort of thing they didn't agree with. And I'm sorry, I forgot. But so anyway, Way back, so we're talking what, 300 years or so. They're doing the opposite. It's the opposite, just like everything now, the pandemic, everything is the opposite of what they're saying, the Mockingbird media. Does anybody ever said that it was Cotton Mather who was a Satanist and not these women and girls as young as 4 were, according to Cotton Mather, possessed by the devil, a 4-year-old girl. They were trying to save each other, and saying he destroyed entire lines of females. Mother, daughter, grandmother died in prison, starvation, disease, I don't know. But has anybody looked at the concept that it was Cotton Mather who was a Satanist, and he was trying to turn everything and focus it on women, like we see constantly in our culture? That these men, whether it's the royals and this, I'm going to say it, reptilian bloodline, it's not just normal white men, they're fine. The pilgrims, the men, white men, they're fine. It's the satanic reptilian pedophilia line, which has been on the planet, some say 60,000 years, 50,000 years, 10,000 years. And Christ came here to try to help us take back our lives and our power and our humanity. But here I am. So I'm just saying it goes back a long way, this reversal. And they are pretty much running the world now. So if you watch mainstream media, which I hope you don't, realize that whatever they say is happening is probably the opposite, because they're being controlled. And I believe the Salem witch trials, it was the opposite too. I'm guessing those women knew nothing about Satanism, and that Cotton Mather did, and that he brought it with him from England, or his family, his father. They all went to Harvard at 12, and they got all the bonuses and benefits you get from being in the in club. Has anybody said those women were women? They're just normal women. They weren't witches and they weren't Satanists. It was Cotton Mather. So trust your heart, trust your instinct, get back in touch with your gut, because it's the head that they can control, and not your heart and your soul. So I'm gonna close now, but I'm going to try to do a live stream once a week, which means I'll be available to answer any questions, to talk, to discuss. It'll be an open chat. And then try to do, look, I'm almost doing like a fireside chat, like a president, like a reptilian president. Anyway, which I'm not, clearly. It's like, I'm laughing because I think that's my polar opposite. Lots of love. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Everybody's trying to say Christmas is bad. The pay, the Satanists, the poor women in recovery from SRA are saying it. The Christians are saying it's pagan. A tree is not pagan, and a tree is not a Satanist. So just, whatever joy we can get, colored lights, Christmas trees, singing, baking, family. Take it while you can get it. Love you. Bye.